Can mines be safeguarded without hurting wildlife habitat?
One of the more interesting aspects to our program is preserving the wildlife at these old abandoned mine sites.
Not surprisingly, the most common animals found living in these abandoned mines are bats. Is saving bat habitat important?
Why not backfill these? Why not destroy these things? The argument can be made that these holes didn't exist 200 years ago. Why protect them now? Given that they're a potential safety hazard, why protect them now for bats? The same argument could be used as why we would have national parks, why we would have wildlife preserves. Humans have made a tremendous negative impact on our world. Natural habitat for a whole variety of species has been destroyed or modified or impacted in a variety of negative ways. What would happen if bats suddenly were off the scene? We have no idea, but a single bat in a single night can eat enough insects that if those insects were allowed to reproduce would result in millions of offspring of that particular kind of insect.
The Abandoned Mineland Program gives special attention to identifying and safeguarding bat habitats.
One of the early projects that gets done is we have on contract a scientist from the University of New Mexico who goes out and does a bat survey of the area. This scientist will go into these mines to determine whether particular mine openings are being used by bats. That helps us then later determine how to close these particular mines in a way not to disturb the bat habitat in the area.
Many of the adits and shafts contain barn owls or endangered bats, and it's really nice to know that you're preserving that habitat for the future instead of just backfilling and losing the history and the wildlife that was associated with these abandoned mine features.
Well, this is a bat cupola structure. It's a three-dimensional steel structure built over a shaft that allows bats to continue using the mine workings that the shaft accesses. One of the design considerations also has to do with safety. So the bat cupola is designed so that the public can come here and safely look down a hole, see what a mine shaft looks like, as well as walk around safely.
The historic preservation of mining areas is something the Abandoned Mineland Program considers of high importance. So how are the priorities of historic preservation and safeguarding balanced?
There's a fine line between wanting to preserve everything around the mines and at the same time wanting to make the mines safe.
Safety is our #1 importance, but if at all possible, we'll leave features and structures intact. We think it's important if our program wasn't recording these sites and leaving these structures intact, they would mostly deteriorate or be destroyed in another process.
We don't want to just close everything so that you would never know there were mines here. So what we might do is fill a mine, but not totally to the top, so you can still see that there was something there. So what we want to do is preserve the feeling of a mining landscape and the history that went with it.
The reason for conducting the historic inventories prior to the mines being closed is that you need to be able to have a context for this mine that is sort of captures what the mine was like before the closures.
Although a lot of abandoned mine safeguarding occurs in remote areas, several recent projects have occurred in more populated areas. One of these areas is the Cerrillos Hills, south of Santa Fe.
We never had an idea this area would become a park. Once we were approached by the county to do the mine closures in the park, our agency did a reconnaissance survey and we found 80 abandoned mines that were extremely hazardous to the public. And we knew that a park couldn't open while those features were still open.
To create Cerrillos Hills County Park, the county, the public, and AML staff worked closely together to make this area safe for public use and at the same time to preserve the mining history of the area.
The public really wanted to see mines left open in a way that they were safe. They wanted to see some interpretive signs. The Historic Preservation Division and other archaeologists wanted us to close the mines in a way to leave them as intact as possible. The county was going to put numerous trails throughout the park, so anywhere you're walking on a trail, If there was a mine in the distance, we wanted it to look like AML was not there. Several of those features were closed with polyurethane foam puff. Several were closed with steel mesh so you could still look down in them, but the waste piles were left intact. And so there were several methods used throughout the park to preserve the historic workings as well as to preserve the historic landscape within the park.
This place, the Vorhees Hills, is the result of the cooperative efforts of a number of people, a large citizens group, a number of people in Santa Fe County. But there is clearly, more than anything else, the Abandoned Mine Land Bureau of the state of New Mexico is the reason that we're here today.
Stabilizing erosion around mine sites and restoring vegetation is another challenge of reclamation.
What we have at coal mines and at all kinds of mines are waste piles from the mines. When they opened up, they would often simply leave behind the material they removed to get to the valuable veins or ores that they were looking at, and simply place them near the mine in piles falling down hillsides, and sometimes being deposited in streams where they can react with the streams and cause acidity or release of metals that present environmental dangers to those areas, including New Mexico's rivers and lakes. And so we try to mitigate those problems also.
The Abandoned Mine Land Program has been working on a large, multi-year project in Sugar Reach State Park in northeastern New Mexico. Steep coal gob piles were eroding and forming deep gullies, so not only did they present an environmental hazard to the nearby stream, but they also presented a hazard to state park visitors. For these reasons, stabilizing the gob piles in the park became critical.
How do we do it? We try to reclaim these waste piles, remove them from streams, remove them from areas where they can be in contact with water, and then for most of these waste piles, simply recontour them and then cover them with material that will allow vegetation to grow. We will plant trees, shrubs, spray mulch on these areas to allow grasses to grow. Basically reclaim these so that they become part of the landscape.
Safeguarding, wildlife protection, historic preservation, topsoil and erosion control are all parts of a reclamation project.
The New Mexico Abandoned Mine Land Program is probably one of the leading programs in the country when it comes to safeguarding abandoned mines and preserving the historic landscape and the historic structures associated with these mining districts.
We all need to know that the state is trying, and we need to help the state as much as possible to get these mines closed and make the ground safe out in our wilderness areas for us so that we can still enjoy our wilderness.
Because of their policy of always putting together a history of the mine that they're going to work on, they've also contributed substantially to our understanding of mining history in New Mexico. As I think of all the state agencies that are involved in historic preservation, AML has truly, as a consequence of its policy, it has contributed substantially to our understanding of the evolution of mining in New Mexico.
Since its inception, the AML program has accomplished many things. We have safeguarded approximately 2,000 mine openings. We have won national recognition for some of our projects, both mine safeguarding projects and mine reclamation projects, through the use of innovative techniques, the development of structures that are bat compatible. I mean, we never know in the abandoned mine land work how many lives we've saved. We only hear of the fatalities and the injuries. But I know that there are people in New Mexico today who are alive because of our work. We don't know who they are, and they may not even know who they are. They may not have realized how dangerous some of these mine openings were. And our backfilling, our structural closures kept them out of a very hazardous and dangerous situation. And so they can go on to live healthy, productive lives.